Okay, and welcome back. We're going to talk about a very important, a very dark, a very evil, a subject that may go beyond evil. It may be something of a supernatural nature, an inhuman, a non-human, a subhuman, multidimensional. I don't know what it is, but there's something at the very top of this planet, as I have been saying for a long time, that is not human in the sense that you or I understand or can relate to, or can even comprehend. Something very dark is running the show. I have come to believe that it is part and parcel of the power structure in every major community in this country, every city, every town, every county government, judges, fire chiefs, attorneys certainly, psychologists, psychiatrists who work with people who say they've been sexually, satanically abused. The Satanists, the Luciferians, the evil ones, are in charge. I call it the cult for short. It runs to the highest levels of national, international government and to the lowest levels of your own community. You would not believe who in your community is involved with the Luciferian satanic cult. Ritual satanic sex abuse is widespread. It is rampant. Every time a little girl of the age of 5 or 6 is raped, repeatedly, violated in any way you can imagine by various male and even females, a variant of a personality is formed. That leads to what is called multiple personality disorder, or MPD. People who have MPD, who have been ravaged and have had their lives destroyed forever as little children and as adults, are owned. They are property of the cult. They are called upon later on to do various jobs. They are sent to take various people down. I have had personal experience with this. They also, in many ways, are programmed to suicide at a relatively early age. You'll find many of them have had multiple suicide attempts because the cult wants the evidence to go away. Once the little girl and little boy grow up, they're not really needed. Some are kept around, as I said, to be used as mass shooters, and then ultimately to commit suicide, shoot themselves in the head, or they're taken out by part of a hit team that is actually anything but the lone gunman. It's a very complicated story, and to talk about this hour is a man that is, I think, as steeped in study in this field as anybody could possibly be. His name is Russ Dizdar, D-I-Z-D-A-R, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's an extraordinarily articulate and well-versed man in this field, and I'm very pleased to have him on the program tonight. I suspect we're going to do 2 or 3 programs about this. Russ, welcome to the program.
Jeff, thanks for having us on. Great to be here with you.
All right, did I sum this up reasonably well?
Very, very well. Very well.
Is it, in fact, as widespread, in your opinion, as I believe it to be?
Sure, and we have been on the field almost 30 years with this. So when we began to deal with the victims, we eventually had to begin to track it backwards to see why there were so many that were coming to us, coming to other individuals. We began to go to the conferences, reading the books, but that was the earlier 80s. And then up to this date now, the tracking is this way, Jeff. It's secular reports by Holly Hector at Centennial Hospital in Denver in the ritual abuse ward in 1994, 2.4 million cases. Colin Ross later articulates possibly 10 million. Now, I don't know if those are correct, but we do know this. Every city we've been to, and I'm able to say now, every single city in the United States has the victims. Mm-hmm. In the psych wards, in counseling centers, churches are showing up with them left and right. When I say Los Angeles or New York or Cleveland, then we're talking thousands over a 30-year period in those cities. Now, these are the victims.
Sure.
But you can't be one of them unless somebody made you. Which means in every city where the victims are, even if there was just one, somebody was behind the selecting of them,
yes,
the
yes,
abuse, the splitting, and all the rest.
A group was at work, clearly.
Absolutely. And that's what we've tracked. That's what we engaged. And once we begin to go after it, track, sure enough, we find individuals that are very angry, and there's a methodology in their changing handlers, and there's a whole world to this, Jeff. It is big, and we're seeing it on the field as far as the shooters, and but it's also not explained well in the psychiatric community as far as the terminology.
I would, if I might suggest one thing, and I've been told this, many of the key psychiatrists and psychologists who deal with victims are in fact part of the cult to control the damage and to keep the lid on the whole thing. Exactly.
Control and keep the lid. And for the psychological community to say that they don't know a whole lot, or it's rare, or it's debatable.
They're lying through their teeth.
Sure. And we can go back and see, we don't have to use our literature or what we think. We can go back to 1947, G.H. Estabrooks, who wrote a book called Hypnotism. He was a world-renowned, I say in the bad way, but world-renowned psychiatrist, psychologist, I mean the world over, hired by U.S. military. In his book, Jeff, he explains how they've learned to cause and to create multiple personalities or alter personalities in soldiers. He defines then how they will program or use those sub-persons without the main person knowing. Assassins, reconnaissance agents, infiltrators, sowers of disinformation. And then in that same literature, the book, in 1947, he says, what we need to do is create enough of these kind of individuals placed in every single department of U.S. military to have a hidden sleeper fifth column. Those are his words.
Wow. All right. And this is again, what year?
1947. That's how far back it goes.
All right. Well, it goes back probably thousands of years, but ultimately in the modern age, that's a good 70 years worth, very close to it. This is now something that has to be considered a cold science. It is not guesswork. It is not just throwing things out there and hoping it might work. They know exactly how to do this. The victim, the young person, male or female, who was raped, and that's how they do it. They break them down before their personalities are completely formed by the age of 6 or 7. The victims never know that they are, in fact, multiples. They don't have immediate access to that. Sometimes, once in a while, they get hold of that and are able to deal with it a little bit. But quickly, if the cult finds out about it, they're brought back under control. This is not something of programming where the person needs to be picked up, needs to be taken somewhere and programmed. They can do this, I am told, over the telephone. In fact, they'll program a victim with a code word. Let's say circus. The victim will get a phone call. Hello? Circus. Circus. And the victim goes into a trance. And the programming begins. They don't have to show up physically. And the person will never know, never, that they have been completely co-opted and controlled by the darkest forces of evil. Is that a fair statement?
It's clearly a fair statement, and we've been in homes where we were hiding victims out, where we, in the early days when we didn't know enough, but phone calls just like that would come in. Sometimes, like the phrase that you just mentioned, a similar phrase, or numbers, or just the tones. Just simply tones. Yeah, sure. Okay, a series of tones will trigger a shutdown, will trigger a runner inside, will trigger someone inside to go to a meet place, to meet them. Mm-hmm. Very, very sophisticated. Even a mic, like we heard a noise. It just sounded like a blip that came in. Slowing it down, what it is a speeded up message. Sometimes in Spanish or a different language even, but it's just a coded, it's a full message, but speeded up. A certain personality can hear it. They come forward and then they get the message. And, just like you said, we've observed this with our own eyes to see it happen.
So it's a burst output of instruction that the subconscious can pull in and decipher once the subconscious has been put into the proper trance configuration to take in data. They could just zap it right in.
Absolutely.
All right. See, this is, folks, this is the real deal. This is the biggest secret. And there is nothing more tragic than someone who thinks she or he is not programmed, but who is exhibiting and acting 1,000% in perfect configuration with what a programmed operation does. When that happens, you have to think programming. And these people, again, can be the nicest people on the planet 1 minute and turn into a raging lunatic the next, and go into some confrontational mind game the next. They have it all. They understand how to use reverse psychology. They understand how to project everything on someone else. They understand the idea of projecting their own sicknesses and weaknesses, like psychopathy and sociopathy, onto other people and try to make it stick. It's called misdirection. They are the masters of misdirection. That's part of being a mind-controlled, guided missile, an assassin, an operative, whatever you want to call it. They are here, they are amongst us, and they can be your next-door neighbor. They can even be your wife. We'll be right back. Okay, back with Russ Dizdar, and we're talking about mind-controlled, ritual, satanic, sexual abuse tools. People whose insides have been literally gutted from them. Pieces remain. Where those pieces are at any given time of the day is anybody's guess. Depends upon their programming and what they're sent off to do. Some are never programmed. Some are just left to their own, and they, in many cases, kill themselves. Suicide. Some are programmed to be mass shooters. You've done a lot of work on shooters lately. Russ, tell us more about that, please.
Well, we begin to find that the subparts, all of them have, they've been trained, they've been programmed, they've been empowered. So, we've been through a whole litany of dealing with separate kinds. Priestesses that know ancient arts and twilight languages and summoning of demons. Sex slaves that know how to use that to compromise and transfer demonic stuff. All kinds of personalities.
It's called honey traps.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So, what you're saying is, honey traps can actually do more than dispense sexual favors. They can use that as a vector to infect the target with some of this very evil you're talking about.
Exactly. And then within them, and these are all personalities that, we can all say we've read about them, things like that, but we've engaged them for years and years to talk, to engage, to help, and to bring healing to them too, to the person. But sitting in a car one night, late night, this person next to me switches personalities. They reach into a bag and pull out a 9mm. Now this is someone who said simply their name was Assassin. So I talked to this one. This is in the 90s, Jeff. I talked to this one for quite a while, and they even handed me their weapon. They wanted me to see it. And so when they gave it to me, I had to be, I'm like praying, should I give this back or not? I did give it back. They did not shoot me, but they were surprised that I didn't shoot them because, and this is what they said to me directly. They, referring to handlers, said that if I would give you this gun, you would shoot me. Now, this is what showed that personality in their, because programming means they're on a specific loop. They've only been injected with one concept, one mind, one thought. But in engaging them in discussion begins to help break that down.
Uh-huh.
But the shooter, assassin, programmed subpersonality, they are experts in weapons, whereas the main person may not know a thing.
Now, let's go back to one other area. The target, the programmed, that person who has been through satanic ritual sex abuse, a horrific experience as a child, and has multiple personalities, will never know that they are under control unless somehow the controllers want them to, tell them, let it slip. But there used to be markers. Oh, missing time was a big marker. But as we said earlier, that's history. They don't use that technique anymore all the time. It's far beyond that.
Correct. And I say this because we began to work with the first generation. And here's where, again, the psychological community, those who are out there helping, everybody wants to help them. And that's a great thing because there's so many. But here's looking now at the stats, Jeff. The first generation are between 55, 65. They all had children. And here's what we found over the years. Second generation, third generation, and now we're dealing with, if there's no interruption, this continues, it's automatic to the next generation and their children. And it's done to them. And it's getting more. So
it's multi-generational. They stay right in there like a bloodline. They continue to do this to each new generation. That's what you're saying.
It is bloodline. I mean, to hear all of them, and we've had well over 300, and we're talking thousands of hours of communication and time spent in almost 30 years.
Wow.
So we have a lot of time on the field. I've had one here at my home a week ago, and we have someone we're supposed to call late night tonight on the West Coast and to deal with them. So, and we have requests left and right. So there are those who are breaking down and beginning to find out or beginning to realize something. And if they get the right counselor, they get the right person, engagement can occur and changes and healing and being set free can occur.
Deprogramming.
But sure, it does involve that. And in our case, and again, in almost all of the cases, whether people call it, now some will say they have empowerment or they have energy. We engaged the entities, and they're very, very powerful. For example, they split a new personality. They call it raw personality, blank personality, in which they begin to program, speak to, train. Then they want to summon, in the satanic side of it, they want to summon spirits to put in and on to kind of crystallize that programming and have that dark spirit then bind that whole plot and purpose together. That's why when they switch personalities, they can kill seemingly without conscious, seemingly reveling in it, in total destruction with no sense of remorse, no sense of, in other words, the only way we've found to stop them when they switched like this, they're, all of a sudden attacking, we have to physically bring them down. And that's what they're finding with some of the shooters.
So there is possession. There is and are entities put into these people that they never are aware of. That's amazing.
That's the design of it. That's why it goes back to the dark side. That whole development of the dark side.
Of course it does. And what do these people do? If they're even remotely close to the programming, they begin to target those around them and project on those people around them that which they themselves are laboring under and compromised by. It's called reverse projection, defensive projection. They do it all the time.
They do, and you can see them. I mean, we've engaged them in our tracking. They've been purposely placed in churches, counseling centers, law enforcement, military, governmental structures. And usually, what I tell folks now is that if you have somebody that has come to you, like out of nowhere, they've just kind of shown up, please understand that you've already been targeted. They've been sent. They have a sender or a group that have sent them in. They've got an agenda.
Okay, so if somebody were to contact me out of the blue, and I would find that person to be the most wonderful person I could ever imagine, I should beware.
If you begin to see other things occur, sure, because the upfront person is made to be completely amnesic and very, there's methodology. We put a thing out years ago on the methods of the infiltration, which is, part of it is they want to assimilate, they want to become your friend, they want to like what you like, they want to give you gifts, they want to compliment you, they're building a connection to the point of vulnerability. All the while they're taking information, gathering information. And then in most of the cases that we dealt with on this level, then they are targeting through what, most even Christians don't even understand, ritual warfare, the summoning of spirits to send them from distance or transmit them.
They want to take your soul. They want to control everything about you. It's all about control and takedown, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's the nature of this radical evil. It's really, I mean, it's, engaging the individual personalities, engaging the ones that are demonized, engaging the demonic spirit. This is not random. Over the years, we have seen again and again, as we've dug really deep inside, that whether we believe this or not, they believe they're part of a new agenda. Collectively, because they're in Ireland, they're in England, they're in Germany, they're in Canada, they're in Australia. So I keep asking everybody, why so many? Why in all those nations? Why generations now of them? And why the hiddenness for now, in a sense, but yet underneath this volatile, violent, and highly trained ability to create the killings, the chaos, the slaughters. Well, Jeff, they say there's an agenda, that they're part of the coming chaos, and they all lust or desire a new order altogether. That's what they're about. They
want abject control. It's all about control. That's what they want. I see it. All right. Hold on, Russ. We'll come right back. Fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back with ritual satanic abuse and multiple personality disorder expert Russ Dizdar. Please click on Russ's name. Go to his website. It is full of very valuable information. Russ, I have been the target of one of these operatives. There have been many attempts to take me down over the years. And this particular instance, the individual, of course, swears that there is no possibility of control. None. So the more sure the person is, the more sure it becomes to me that there is reason to suspect, because these people do not mess around. I have never seen more radical changes in personalities in a matter of moments. I have never seen anything like the kinds of excesses and bizarre behaviors that make no sense logically, intellectually, or in any other fashion. And it doesn't matter how much you try to be the good guy or the good girl and help the male or female involved. Kindness and patience and love and devotion and dedication and steadfast support don't break it down easily at all.
Agreed. I mean, because the program, and especially again because the way they were made. And here's just a simple way for a lot of folks to understand. They've seen on television a hypnotist hypnotize a group of people. He gets all these people to do things, crazy things, funny things, things they would never do themselves. And then he takes them out of that trance state, telling them that they won't remember and they'll feel refreshed. And guess what? They have consciously at that moment, they have no idea what occurred. Even if the operator, the hypnotist tells them, they doubt. Unless somebody shows them a video, then they're stunned. So when we deal with programming and creating permanent alter personalities, then you have something far deeper, far more controllable. And once again, Jeff, they can take personalities from the childhood level and throughout the first 13 years, bring that personality up. One of them described it to me like this. They said, it's like monkeys in a cage. They have us down in here. We come to a meeting or we go to this place. They pull up one individual. They have them have more programming or training or whatever else they might do, put them back down by code, and then get another one out and do the same. And so it's really controlled by outside individuals, and it's really, it's human trafficking, to the max.
That's exactly right. It is total human They own these people. These people are in pieces. And I have a story to tell which I have not told. Hopefully I'll never have to tell it. It is so horrific and ugly that it's heartbreaking. And I know what you're talking about. I can tell that this is something that is common all around the country. Someone in my position that a lot of people in the power structure don't like. They have tried many things over the years to smear and libel and defame. Their latest has been to send something which I strongly believe is one of these guided missiles, as it were, who don't know what they're doing. They do not understand it. But there are giveaways. There are fractured personality, mood changes, the likes which you have never seen. There are behaviors that make no sense, as I said, logically or in a linear sense at all. It is something that is, it's almost indescribable. It truly is. And that's part of the way they get away with it.
It really is. And here's an example again. I was recruited by a law enforcement agent to come into their department, and they wanted me to be their police chaplain. But the agenda was to get me to teach in the Academy on Cult and Satanic Crimes, to be involved in that. But here's what occurs. The corporal that brought me in is a high complex, multiple, has many personalities with many abilities inside.
And these can be very intelligent people, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the upfront person might look like they don't know a lot, but when you get to different ones inside, it is really, Jeff, like having real different people, but they're all rooted and connected into one body. And what happens is I have one that speaks Russian, one that speaks German, one that speaks Punjabi, one that speaks and draws ancient occult, languages like Ogham, Belshari, things like that, to where they can use for summoning. Mm-hmm. All these things we begin to engage with. So here's what occurs. We're wanting to keep this person safe and not be triggered to take out. So I call on a Friday to say, I'll just say the name Susie. It's not a real name, this corporal. And I said, Susie, how's things going? Any problem? Anything going on tonight? Nope, not a thing going on. Nothing happening. And we already knew there was. We already had a team out. So I simply just called on a sub-personality that I'd talked to, a male personality. Mm-hmm. I said, Andrew, are you there? Andrew begins to tell me, Russ, they're coming at 11 o'clock. This is what they're going to do. She's already, they've already prepared her, things like that. And here's how it worked. Susie was in the middle of a sentence, speaking, responding to me when I said Andrew. Instant switch. I'm talking now to Andrew. When I'm done talking to Andrew, Susie comes back, finishing the sentence she started 20 minutes prior.
Missing time.
Not knowing.
Never noticed. Never noticed.
Never. I told her, I said, look at the clock. Here's what I've told others, even in the military, when they say they get strange calls, they don't know who it is. It happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. If I get a call and I'm saying hello, within seconds I'm just going to hang up. Well, I said, do this. We had to learn. I said, the moment the phone rings, mark down what time it is. It'll take you 3 seconds, just 10:30. Mark it down. You answer the phone, and if you're putting it down, saying, "Well, nobody's there," look up if 5 minutes passed. It didn't take you 5 minutes to say, "Oh, nobody's there," and it'll take somebody 3 or 6 or 7 seconds. If it's 5 minutes go by, something else.
Or even 3 minutes.
Or 3 minutes, sure.
Point well taken. We're going to, Brett, we're going to go through this break. Here's another one. A child, a male, a female, it doesn't matter, is multi-generationally in the cult. That means the grandmother was in it, the mother was in it, the child is in it. The child, again, is taken by the parent or parents and dropped off at a location, or brought to a ceremony, some kind of an evil, dark, satanic ceremony, where the raping and the sexual violations and human sacrifices perhaps are conducted amongst and around them. Now, if a mother, after the child is 7 or 8, refuses to make eye contact with that child out of obvious discomfort, shame perhaps, revulsion at what that parent, mother, father has done to that child, that's a pretty strong indicator that there's something seriously wrong there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in the multi-generational side of it, here's what we also find again and again. When we have a second generation individual and they're telling us all the stuff that's gone on, here's how it works. It's not the upfront mom. It's the sub-personalities that have also now been trained, because they're older, they've been trained to be a splitter, a programmer, a conjurer, all these things. So here's how it does work. And children that we have interacted with for counseling will tell us, "Mommy's not mommy. I talk to Tracy. I play with Jody. I get scared when Jonas comes forward." Even children can learn the differences and see. Even in the eyes, the color can change. When there's a switch, the face can even have an alteration in the facial structure.
Oh, the muscles change. Absolutely. Yes. I had one person tell me that his or her, I won't go into it, mother absolutely refused to look him or her in the eye. Would not do it. And this is after the mother had dropped that child off for a long period of time at the age of 5 or 6 for weekly sessions. The mother would not look that child in the eye ever again.
Exactly. There's something about the eyes, just because even the scripture talks about, like the idea of the eyes being the window to the soul, the window to the inner. So when we do this observation in every case, they can be co-conscious. In other words, you're talking to the upfront person, they're amnesic, they don't know, but as you're looking at them and you're looking into their eyes, you're studying them. We've called this in our teams here just simply multiple eyes. It's as if 2, 3, 4 people are looking. There's something different between that and just we've dealt with a lot of demonization too, but that is a little bit different to where co-conscious subparts are able to look through and assess who's out there without the main person knowing and decide what they're going to do. And so in some counseling cases, I'll be talking for, an hour and a half with somebody, and I'll finally look at them and I'll say, I know that, depending on how I sense things, 3 others have been listening or 4 others have been listening. We're here to talk to you also. Usually when I say that, instantly their eyes will go back to that more of a clean, pure sense, because the others will then back away, or they'll even say out loud, "Oh, they just went down." So there is a physiological side when others are up, partially up, and or when they take over. Even the voice, or a male personality in a female body. I had one from Fort Bragg that sat in front of me for years. We were interacting, and every time the male personality, we're at a Borders bookstore, and the male personality came up and this was the one giving us a lot of information, taking us places. Soon as he would come up, instantly he'd look to his right and left, take off the earrings, wipe his mouth, the woman's mouth, push the purse aside. He knew the difference. And this is the strange part. Male, see, they can form the personality just like in hypnosis, only this is the idea of permanent, and make it whatever the programmer in the system of creating them wants it to be.
There are, again, so many cases of these people being programmed to commit suicide. Some of them end up doing a murder-suicide. This is very common, I'm told. Very common, and a lot of folks write to me concerning it because of our work with, assassin personalities and engaging them and listening to their agenda. Here's what we've seen. It is my opinion, because I had not worked with, and I won't say this outside of somebody I haven't worked with face to face, but the VTech shooter, Jared in Arizona, and Holmes in Colorado. Those 3 speak of programming, being sent to do, and with suicide programming. Jared was going to attempt that. We don't know about Holmes because he got caught too quick. Jared's gun jammed too quick, and they held him down. But in the VTech shooter, a guy who supposedly never used a gun, very quiet, very passive, all of a sudden becomes an expert. I mean, better than a SWAT team trained member. I think it was 60%. Yes. And was able to slaughter that way, and then instantly put the gun to blow his face off. I understand. Yep. In my case, it's very complicated, and I'm not ready to bring it fully forward yet. But I have been warned by 3 different police officers that I am in definite danger of murder-suicide. And it's not a good feeling to deal with, especially when the individual involved, and you know this, all of them have good sides, good personalities, other personalities, and then the dark personalities that they are not aware of. None of them. When one personality is involved, there's almost a suspension of conscious process by all the others. They're just put on ice. They're shut down.
And that's how it's meant to be. And if you think in terms of, and let's just say VTech shooter, even Claybold in the Columbine, people don't understand where that goes back to. The parents' involvement in a military base where there was mind control projects. So even looking at that case, there's more to it. And even the Sandy Hook shooter, to me, that, to listen to an FBI profiler say they just snapped, they went crazy. Jeff, I have to ask, what does that mean, go crazy? I mean, I know what it is to see people get mad. I've been, long before I became a Christian, I was in bars and seen fights. I was raised in a family that we yelled and screamed and cussed. So I know what it is to see anger and brawling and whatever. This is not the same thing. Not that level of completely blacked out, almost reveling in the slaughter. That's the picture, the slaughter of the individuals. And then
and what human being slaughters little children like that? What human being from an upper middle class family slaughters children like that? This doesn't fit in with any known paradigm that I can imagine. This is just not something a young kid would do, unless there's something else at work. There are, of course, suggestions that Sandy Hook, Newtown, may be a cult center. There may be a strong cult. Now, people will say, well, they don't want publicity. They would never do something like that out in the open, slaughter that many children. I disagree. I don't pretend to know how the cult operates, but I wouldn't put anything past any of them. Evil is evil. One of the parents dressed the kids in the cult colors. Now figure that one out. And I'm not saying that these are all actors or any of that other crap. I'm saying that there are indications, hard indications, that there's something very wrong with the Sandy Hook shootings.
I agree. From a distance, looking at it even from a distance, I completely agree. And now we have another shooter down in, I believe it's New Mexico, a 15-year-old boy. Right. Another one. Now look at the series and look at the timing and look at all of it. I mean, we've all seen, we've seen, in the United States, riots and I've seen, all these different things. But when you see, these things that are designed, so they say Holmes just snapped, went crazy, but he plotted and planned and prepared and even prepared his apartment, to as booby trapped. I mean, does a crazy out of their mind person do all these things in SWAT team militaristic, level,
too much planning. He didn't just lose it. He didn't just lose it.
Correct.
No. This is an intricately planned issue.
And there's usually handlers. There's usually those who are behind the scenes. When it's the real thing, in our cases anyway, when it's the real thing, real programming, real design, suicide programming, all of it, there's always behind the scenes, handlers.
There is nothing
that are in charge of this.
Correct. I want to tell you that in my experience, there's nothing more tragic than to see someone who has had their life turned inside out like this and destroyed, because they yearn for normalcy, and yet it always eludes them. They're not allowed to have it. They really can't have it. They would love to have it, but they are barred from it. And I'm not prepared to talk in specifics about any of this now. But for those of you who've been following the attacks on me, just know that there is a Mount Everest of material that you're not hearing. And I'll leave it at that.
A couple of things, Jeff, in when all of a sudden, because what happens is folks will hear a program like this, and then they'll write saying, we think we have one at our work, or we think we have one in the church, and they just showed up, and here's the things. Well, here's what we need to say. even though the upfront person might seem very nice and not even know really what's going on, watch out for consistent gifts where they have looked at what you like, and so they bring you gifts that you really like, foods that you really like. Watch out, because we learned the hard way, then we learned, in our surveillance observation. Demonized objects, poisoned foods,
poisoned foods. Another.
Sure.
All right. I'm a vegan. If someone were to present hypothetically to me being a vegan and loving vegan food, I love that too. I should be very careful.
They would observe what you like first, so that way, because they really want to.
There could be a period of study, is what you're saying.
Oh, assume that. Sure, assume that they've observed you, that they have they've got, in a real sense, internally and externally, you've been profiled. There's a file, your connections. They've webbed you. They know, and they want more information. They want to know all the connections. They want to have a file. One of them sat down and said, "Russ, when we build a file, the first thing we are noticing is we're looking for what are this person's vulnerabilities." And I looked at this person. And I said, okay, what's my vulnerabilities? Instantly, within half a second, your daughter and your wife. And they were correct. I mean, to have them show up at a local church and say to my face, "Jeff, we're coming for your daughter," when she was 2. And so there's so much to this, and we've had so many cases where afterwards, the after effects, people have been injured, hurt, churches have been hurt, things have happened, and they're like, "What just happened to us?" And we go in to begin to ask some of these questions. An entire counseling team was brought to me in Pennsylvania once, and as we began to go over this, all of that entire counseling staff began to say, right, the gifts, they wanted this information. They wanted to come in our offices and volunteer. They wanted all the information.
They wanted to work with you. They wanted to help you. They wanted to feed you. I see. Okay, all these things are possibles. And you did mention the poisoning of foods. And the person doing the poisoning would never know it in a conscious sense.
Well, that's what we're sitting in a staff meeting in a church. This is when I still pastored, and we did this on the side, as a second thing still. And one of these, SRAs came and brought a cake. And we're already learning, and that's why some get mad at me now. Like if they bring me something to drink or eat, it's just a rule. I say, don't take it personally. It's a rule. Yeah. I won't take a gift. I won't take the food. I won't take the stuff. Well, here's what happened. I get so bugged. I just really have this discernment of saying, no, Lord, this is not, something's wrong. All the staff's up there, the cake's there, people are getting ready to, I'm so bugged, Jeff. I get up, I go over, I grab it, I throw it into the trash. Mm-hmm. They confessed later to putting ingredients in it, including urine. I mean, even the ritual side of things with blood. And again, we might understand, but they understand how spirits work, attachments work, and curses work. And that can be included in whether an object or foods, incrementally, but they're looking to overall bring harm, destruction, corruption, compromise, or eliminate.
Wow. When Russ says SRA, he's talking about satanic ritual abuse victims. Those are the sleepers, those are the agents, and they don't know what they're doing. They are so compartmentalized. This is Russ, would you come back and talk more about this?
Jeff, anytime you need us, we'll be there, and our prayers are there. Thanks for having us on.
Well, thank you very much for sharing all this. It has been extremely helpful on many different levels to our audience, and I appreciate it. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks now.
Thank you. Russell Dizdar, and you can go to Russ's website and study up on this. Again, it's the biggest, darkest, ugliest secret. His website is called ShatterTheDarkness.net. shadowthedarkness.net. We'll be back.